You're listening to Stimulus Tech Talk, a conversation-based podcast created by Stimulus Technologies that covers a range of topics related to business and technology.
Welcome to Stimulus Tech Talk. I'm Sherry Lipp, the marketing manager at Stimulus Technologies, and I am here today with our CEO, Nathan Whitaker. And we are going to be talking about smishing, text message scamming, which we've probably all experienced from time to time. Welcome, Nathan.
Thanks, Sherry, and thanks everybody for joining us today. That's probably not a word that you've heard before, smishing. It's fun to say, though.
Hard to say. And fun. So I think that comes from SMS phishing attacks.
That's exactly where it comes from. So, it's definitely on the rise. And interesting, I was talking to some representatives from the FBI not too long ago, and they said this is, the number one area that they're focused on, and they're seeing a significant amount of fraud, especially on the personal side. And people are more likely to fall victim to these type of attacks as of recent. So it's important. I think we've mentioned in the past, but we've never gone into detail on it. So it's good that we're talking about it today.
Yeah. And do you have any speculation or have you heard anything about why this would be on the rise so much?
I think because there's such good filtering on emails, especially with AI advanced email filtering on business emails, it's harder and harder for attackers to get through some of these filtering systems. And there's like little to no filtering on SMS. So I think that's why we're seeing an uprise in these is, especially younger people are more apt to respond and work through SMS text or just text messaging than through email. That's one way. And then two, there's just not as much controls or filtering on text messaging. Now, I'll preface this that the cell phone companies have been doing a lot of work to prevent text messaging scams from going forward. And there's a lot of registrations that they're now requiring. This isn't federal regulations, but it's more from a industry standards base. But as they've made it more complicated for businesses to use text messaging to communicate with clients. I've seen just a continued proliferation of phishing through text messaging. So I don't think the industry groups are doing enough or doing the right things to prevent this. So as of right now, it's hard. You can't just go out and buy an enterprise grade AI backed anti-phishing system for your text messaging for your personal cell phone devices, which a lot of companies allow their employees to use personal cell phone devices for business, or we just use them personally anyways. So that there's just not a lot of protection in place on this, and that's why we're seeing a big increase.
And do you think AI plays a big role? Because I've been getting it's actually a text message and a phone call that leaves a voicemail with an AI voice about like some package that can't be delivered unless I contact them. Do you think how big of a role has AI played in this increase?
Yeah, I'm sure that's a big part of it because with AI, they can increase the number of contacts and the better interactions in these messages. So, previously a lot of smishing scams or these type of scams were an individual, a lot of times in another country, that you could buy a phone number here in the US very cheap. And play these scams. And now it's, an AI bot through, some programming and what we call APIs can quickly send out thousands and thousands of these text messages and interact just like a human would with a goal in the end. So I do think your question is the answer is yes. AI has certainly increased not just the amount but the complexity of these type of scams and the more realistic that they have become too.
And what do you think? What do you think are the most common scams going around? I know a few years ago there was one where they were texting that the FBI was on the way to your house and you were going to get arrested. And I just mentioned, package delivery.
Yeah, I think a few years ago you'd see these ones that would say like, "Oh, UPS or USPS or FedEx is holding your package. Click this link to track the information." And you click the link and ask for some private information. Those are pretty easy to identify because it doesn't takes you even the link doesn't have USPS or UPS or FedEx in it. So I think I still see those personally, and we get reports of them, but those are pretty easy to identify and say that's not real. Um, the ones that are really on the rise, and this is what the FBI warned about, are a little odd. So you'll get a text message that'll say something like, "Hey, I remember we visited in Vegas when I was there, but I'll be back and like to have coffee or something like that." And but you don't have the contact in your phone, and you reply back and say, "Hey, who is this? I don't know who you are." And they say, "Oh, this is Debbie," and I thought you'd remember me, and you say, "Oh, I don't remember Debbie," um, and then they'll respond back in some way of saying, "Oh, well, since you're from Vegas, would you mind sharing a good place to have coffee? I'm meeting with a friend there." And you start like this friendship dialogue with this person, and you want to be helpful. As we talked about on this channel a lot, is social engineering is all about getting something or somebody to do something they wouldn't necessarily do, and it's often driven by a helpful ask. Like, you just ask a stranger for directions in a convenience store. That's what this person is going off of. "Hey, give me directions. I just need a little bit of help." And then suddenly you're building like this rapport and friendship with this person you're texting back and forth with, or this AI bot that you're texting back and forth with. And then pretty soon they're going to give you an ask. And that ask, it might come quickly. It might come weeks in advance. You might be texting back and forth with this person for a while, and it might be something like, "Hey, I've recently come across this investment company. I made a lot of money at. Would you be interested in investing in it?" And obviously you'd be put off by it, and you'll say something like, "Well, I can promise you it's legitimate. And if you just invest, $100 or $500 or whatever, a small amount in their eyes, I assure you, you'll get it back plus interest right away. If you invest $100, you could ask for your interest, $150 back immediately. And sure enough, you invest $100, and then you get $150 back. You get the money back, and it's great. And then suddenly they're asking you for a much larger sum, and then you lose that money. And so it's this whole pretexting social engineering, getting you to do something you wouldn't necessarily do, convincing you that it's a true financial transaction, and then they perpetrate some type of financial fraud with you. And it's all through this long scenario. And again, I spoke this in just a few words or a few minutes, but this could occur over weeks or months before they convince you to do that. And this is the one that the FBI is really warning people about. Is if you get texts from people asking you simple things and you respond, you're building rapport. And so just cut it off very quickly. Don't respond to those type of requests, because I can assure you they're not legitimate. They're either some AI bot and some individual that's nefariously targeting potentially either people that are lonely. They're targeting single people. They're targeting maybe high net worth individuals, and they know this because of online social media profiles, LinkedIn profiles, things like that. They know who you are, and they have your cell phone number. They're specifically targeting you for those. And so it's, again, they're not after a quick $5. They're not after a short term scheme. This is a long game that a lot of these phishing attacks are after today.
Yeah, I imagine, kind of bringing it around to businesses, you or people like you are susceptible to those kind of like, hey, we met before, because you meet a lot of people, and you're meeting with people and having coffee and whatever. That can probably happen, and it's right on the website, who you are.
Yeah, and it very well could be that even if you posted, let's say on LinkedIn, there's a lot of bots on LinkedIn and you can gather a lot of information. So maybe you just posted on LinkedIn, I just attended this industry conference in Florida, and I, learned, I had a great event at this conference, met a lot of people, and then suddenly now the text message could be so detailed to say, hey, we met at the happy hour in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. You might not remember me. We only had a brief conversation, but I got your cell phone number from, your executive assistant, and just wanted to reach out and, you start a conversation. So, we generate a lot of information, and I'm not saying don't do that, but just be aware that these AI bots are able to gather so much information and make these connections at such speed that these scams are going to be much more complex than they were before. So the advice always is don't trust these right off the face. Verify the information, and then certainly, if it feels weird or you can't remember the connection, if you don't have any recollection of it, don't initiate any further conversation. And then, if they're representing them from, a certain company, call that company, verify that, that person is real through other methods. So don't trust SMS. It's, generally a scam. If they're, asking you to do something you wouldn't necessarily do. And it's usually just small stuff, small helpful things.
Mhm. That reminds me of a story. I don't know if you remember it, but it was here in Las Vegas, and somebody, talked somebody, I think, through text messaging to take money. They worked for the casino, and they talked them into taking money out of it because I can't remember if they said they were police. Do you remember this story?
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago. I think it was like
Yeah.
a cage manager took money from, and I wish I had this up, but yeah, took money from the cage and delivered it to a guy in like a back alley or something like that, and it was like supposedly an FBI sting or something along those lines. But yeah, I mean, it's amazing that these hackers are getting people that shouldn't do this kind of stuff. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
and I think that's a good segue too. They deal on this sense of urgency. Just like the one that you mentioned at the very beginning, like, hey, we're FBI, we're monitoring you outside. It creates a sense of panic and urgency, and that's immediately turns down, um, your cerebral brain of computing, oh, this is not real, and it immediately goes to the fight or flight reptilian brain, and it means that you take a prehistoric action. Prehistoric as our brains, that have evolved over time. We just know we have to do two actions. We either need to fight or we need to flight, and we just have to take that action right now. That's what they're asking us to do. And so often we want to absolve ourselves of this pain that we may potentially be in. And so we make mistakes. We take that flight mentality that, oh, I don't want to get in trouble with the FBI, or I don't want my power to be shut off, or no, I don't want to miss my package, or
Right.
and then suddenly we're making mistakes. And it's the whole scam, the fake box request scam too, that's really common. Hey, can you go get me $100, 100 Amazon gift cards, and I'm out of town, and send them over to me. It's the same thing. We have a fear of losing our job if we don't comply with the owner of the company or the boss's request. And so we'll take an action out of fear of loss of our job that, I mean, nobody would, nowadays, I hope nobody would do that. But if you don't have that flight or fight feeling inside your body, if your brain was actually working and computing that, you wouldn't take that action. But hackers are really good at getting you
Mhm.
going to those emotions of making you do this flight type scenario, that you're going to take this action to get out of the pain that you potentially could be in with your boss, of losing your job, or missing a deadline, or not pleasing somebody, whatever it may be. You want to avoid that. Take a moment to think, unless you get a certified letter in the mail or really do have somebody with a badge and a gun standing at your door, you don't need to take action in the moment. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a fear of missing out too. There's that feeling like, well, what if it is real that the FBI is outside? Or I had a friend, they're like, those people who offer the blessings and social media comments aren't real, right? No, he's like, well, what if they were? What if they are? They're going to give me $10,000, and they get those that fear of missing out that you
yeah,
might be missing out on the money. And
you got to go back to the old adages of no quick get rich schemes out there. They're all it's schemes, right? They're not real. Um, and the chances of that actually being real are much lower than even winning the lottery. So I'd rather buy a $2 lottery ticket than
yeah,
responding to a text or investing in a financial scheme.
yeah,
At least the government's backing it some. And whether you trust the government on paying you or not, I mean, at least there's some type of backing there
yeah,
with the state government. So
yeah,
yeah, if you want to do that, we live in Vegas, go throw $5 in a slot machine, or
yeah,
if you live in a state with a lottery, go throw $5 and buy a lotto ticket. More likelihood of winning the Mega Millions or Powerball or whatever it is than actually making money on one of these schemes.
yeah. Another, keeping it on the business side, um, another thing I've seen a lot is that people are spoofing businesses for fake job opportunities to collect people's private information. And I knew somebody who was like, it was very sophisticated. They got the text that they were chosen as for an interview, and it was like to go to one of those apps like a WhatsApp type of app, but it wasn't that one. And there was actually a person there, impersonating a recruiter. And what tipped them off was that this recruiter didn't actually know their name, and they actually hadn't seen the resume. It was very, very strange thing, but it was like, oh, it's a $30 an hour job, and it's entry level, and it's super easy, and you're gonna love it. And so, and it was, but and this person, I was like, I looked them up, and it was a legit company, and it turned out that this place was spoofing this company. So have you seen that? What can business owners do if they find out this is happening?
Yeah, we've seen that, and oh man, it's really scary. I've actually heard. I was reading a news story recently that somebody even got all the way through, and they thought they had a job, and along with like 5,000 other people showed up at this location thinking that they had a job, and it was all fake, but they
Oh,
had submitted their social security cards and IDs and significant amount of confidential information, and it was all fake. So from a business owner standpoint, I recommend just having, one location to post your jobs. If people call up and say, hey, where can I apply for the job? You can tell them, we use one, employee management system that you can, or that you can input your data, and that's all there is. I mean, it's honestly, unfortunately, it's hard as a business owner, if your company is spoofed, um, to reconcile that. There are companies out there that focus on that reputation management companies. So if you are concerned about that or have had that happen, that a hacker has spoofed your company, there are businesses out there that do reputation management and will go and scour the internet for anybody that's faking that, and they'll monitor that. So I would, if that's a concern of yours, or if it's common in your industry, I would consider investing in a company that can help you with reputation management. I don't have any recommendations of a specific company. and I wouldn't say just Google it, because maybe the top few might be hackers themselves. I don't know, but ask around. Maybe ask your attorney firm for some help on identifying some companies to assist you with that reputation management. Us as if you're looking for a job, really pay attention. Don't just trust the website you're going to, or the contact information you're given. Feel free to pick up the phone, reach out. Again, same advice. Find the publicly available information about the company and reach out to them, rather than the private information, and say, I just ask for the HR person and the recruiter inside the company, and just verify that you're actually applying to the right firm before you go down that full route. So it's a good idea to verify that through second methods that you're communicating with the right person or the right company. I had this instance, and it happens a number of times to us, because we're an internet service provider, that we'll get subpoenas for maybe somebody that's potentially our customer that is doing fraudulent activities through their internet provider internet service. And so we'll get these subpoenas of requesting confidential data on one of our subscribers, and legally we have to, if it's a court-ordered subpoena, we have to comply with it. But if we just get an email in to our security channel email address, we certainly don't reply to it immediately. We call through publicly available data, whether it's the FBI or a state police agency, or local police agency. We'll call the main number, verify who's requesting the subpoena through the main telephone system, and ensure that they are valid. I personally haven't had any that have been not officially requested, but it's certainly a potential scam. And I think that's the same way. We just have to verify that the information that we're getting, especially if it's asking for confidential data, is legitimate, whether it's through text messaging or emails or phone calls. Just figure out a different way to verify the information. Just be a little less trusting than you normally would.
Right. And probably one of the biggest questions I get asked, because of what I do here at Stimulus, is at what point am I in trouble? If people ask me if I accidentally respond to one of these text messages that are malicious, because you don't realize at first. Is it just responding? Is it clicking the link? Is it?
It's once you give them data, and you're in trouble. Responding, fine. They now know that you're a real phone number, that you'll respond. Okay, fine. You've done a little bit of harm, but not too bad. But I would recommend, if you have responded and then you realize that it's not legitimate, immediately delete the thread and report it as spam. Most devices now have the ability to report that as spam, and block the number, so that you don't respond to it in the future. And then, you're in bigger trouble if you've given like a username and password, or you've given bank account information, or you've given, some type of confidential data. That's when it can get a little tricky. And if that's the case, if you've gone that far, it is a little embarrassing, right? You're now saying that you've done something wrong, and it's maybe embarrassing to go to an authority. But I can assure you that, if you file a police report, or you contact the FBI, or, you report it to the Consumer Protection Bureau, they're going to be very helpful to you. I can tell you, especially the local FBI offices are really looking at crime statistics, and they have dedicated people that want to hear from even individuals that are getting these scams. It doesn't have to be a business, but if you run a business, don't be embarrassed. Call the FBI. They'll help you through, and they'll provide a lot of support for you through the process. You've not broken any laws, and they certainly want to catch the people that are breaking the laws. So you might be a little sheepish about doing it, but certainly report it, and they'll help you identify what you need to do. Now, they're not going to fix it all for you, but they'll help you, find reputable companies like Stimulus Technologies that can help, remediate these type of things in your business. And they'll connect you with the people that can really do good work for you, and then of course they'll help you from a legal standpoint of ensuring that maybe they can catch these individuals that are trying to scam you. So don't be sheepish about reporting this either. File a police report, contact the FBI for the statistics collection and support, and then contact your cybersecurity provider so that you can really fix this problem and hopefully not cause any further damage.
And to kind of wrap things up, we've talked about the importance of verifying the information, but are there ways, how can we try to spot these bad texts?
I've come to a point that unless it's like somebody that's in my contact database, I almost never respond. I mean, it's really rare that I would personally respond to a text that's not a contact. So I think that would be, if you want to default to, I'm going to not respond to things and not be targeted, make sure you're only responding to people that you absolutely know beforehand. So that would be the strongest approach. And then, next step potentially is tell the people that they need to contact you through the regular communication channel. You don't respond to text messages. And then if they, you're not going to give them your email address or your company's phone number, that, if they met you at that business function, in Fort Lauderdale, they probably have your email address and they should contact you that way. And so, make them go a different route than through those text messaging scenarios. So, certainly don't share any confidential information over text messaging. Don't click on any links through that. And then if you do have communication that you feel is necessary, maybe somebody that you might not have a contact for, just tell them to communicate through the regular business channel that they should, which is through email or calling your office and having your office connect them to you.
All right. Well, as always, it's important to stay safe out there. Thanks, Nathan. Thanks for all the great information.
You're welcome, Sherry, and stay safe. And if you need any help or support on this, feel free to reach out to our office, and we're happy to provide some guidance and help you through this scary time. I mean, I think that there's just a lot of different vectors that hackers use, and this is certainly one that's been trending up in the last couple of years.
All right. Thanks. Thanks, everybody.